Welcome on in, everybody, to Same But Different. We are here with the second week of Awesome August, where we are tasked with watching the top 100 movies of all time, or some of them rather, according to IMDb. As always, I am here with my brother and my co-host, Derek, and I think we're going to get his review of Das Boot first. Das Boot literally translates to the boat, if you were wondering. Fun stuff. Take it away, Derek.
Das Boot! It's nice to be reviewing this film because I feel like it's always been present in my life, like working at Blockbuster and people talking about it. It's always been like there. I didn't know about its existence, so it's cool to dive into this. Let's start with the story, the writing, the characters in general. It's a straightforward story. It's a crew of Germans who are set out to intercept and destroy convoys. They're just out there in a submarine doing what submarines do, on the prowl, and they run into some trouble that causes them to more or less stay beneath the waves and try to wait it out and try to survive. With this trouble, they have to deal with all the mechanical and psychological failures that come with it. What I liked about the story is that it's from a German's perspective. We always watch World War II movies, and it's always about the Americans and the British fighting the war against the bad guys. And don't get me wrong, the Nazis were the bad guys, but there was a large faction of people who fought on Germany's side that didn't subscribe to any political party, and that's what Nazis were, right? They were a political party, and they were just soldiers following orders. They even, at the beginning of this movie, made fun of Hitler. They weren't really fond of who he was. They were just a bunch of normal average Joes going out to fight for their country and do their best. So that was really cool to see. In comparison, it just wasn't that different than if it were to be a boat full or a submarine full of British people or American people. Like, they weren't different. It was just normal dudes. The dialogue and the writing was fine. I think because it was a foreign film and because of the translation, some things were lost on me and some things that were said just didn't really make sense. I can't think of any specific examples for this, but I know for a fact there were a few times where they said some sort of phrase or some sort of anecdote where I was like, that doesn't make sense at all. I don't think that has anything to do with the writing. Maybe that's just translation. I don't know. The writing was a little heavy-handed in the philosophy and philosophical talk. When average Joes, such as we've got, start to dive into like really thick thought processes. It's okay if like maybe one person does it or maybe two that they're having the conversation with, but like when multiple characters start doing it, I'm like, okay, did everybody go to philosophy school? What's happening here? It didn't necessarily take me out of the movie. It was just like I caught it once in a while and be like, well, not everybody would be talking about the meaning of life or something like that. I really enjoyed getting to know these characters, and it's very rare that a movie can drop me into a movie and not give too much background on any of the characters. We see them looking at pictures of their girlfriends or wives back home sometimes, but we don't get too much background on any of these characters. The main point of the movie is to be in this submarine with them and grow with them and learn to love them as you're there. It's like Lieutenant Werner, the guy who was put in there to watch and observe. He was the audience, and he grew and learned to love this crew as we did as an audience, and I think that was really cool. Each one of the characters were very unique and had a special voice, so that was really cool. The directing and cinematography was really cool, vastly different from Lawrence of Arabia because we're confined into a small space rather than, I'm going to say vastly again, rather than the vast desert. But it was just as well. The confined, restricted, gritty feeling that was established by the directing and cinematography was fantastic. I felt like I was actually sardined in this boat with these guys. There was just constant feeling of, you got nowhere to go, kid. Like, if something bad happens, you guys are fucked. And that was like the driving force behind like the thrill of the movie. I really loved all of the one shots that happened. The cameraman and the director would just follow them through all the holes, handheld through the sub from one end to the other sometimes. And it was all one shot and it was crazy cramped. It was just nerve-wracking to see that. I'm thinking about how they did that on the day, like filming it. I'm like, how do you do this? How do you get a big camera? I mean, it's the early 80s. That camera's not small. It can't be. Red was often used as danger, as it is, and blue lights were often used as safety. So that was really cool to see the color contrasts throughout the film. I don't know if this has to do with directing per se, but to film the movie almost, I think it was filmed in sequence. I think I remember reading that, but at least almost in sequence, where like the beards that you saw grow and the hair that you saw grow and become stringy and greasy, that was all happening. I could smell the BO coming from this sub. I love the realism. It felt like documentary work sometimes. It was never overacted, I feel. It was very like I was watching a war documentary. It was really cool. Lastly, on the directing and cinematography, my favorite scene where they blew up the British boat and you see the British soldiers jumping off the boat, yelling for help, saying like, help us, come get us. And they're just sitting on their submarine watching this happen. It's all red from the fire on the water. One of them's crying and the captain's just sternly looking ahead, and the boat just backs away because you can't. They can barely survive with what they have. They want to. You can tell that they want to, but they just can't. And that was beautifully directed, and lighting and cinematography was incredible. Moving on to the sound of music, not the sound of music, the sound and music. I think this is where the film truly shined. The sound design of this film, here comes another pun, blew me out of the water. It was incredible. This is where the horror element comes from in this movie. When the propellers of the boat were overhead and they just had to remain silent. When the sonar was pinging their boat and it got faster and faster as it approached. It was incredible. And it was so scary during those scenes. Those were my favorite parts of the movie, when they just had to be quiet while they were basically being hunted from above the water. When they descend. And they keep descending. He's like, keep going deeper, deeper. And the boat starts to creak and you feel like it's just going to crush them at any moment. It's just like so horrifying. To wrap it up, the movie was obviously too long. I mean, I have to say something about the time. 3.5 hours is crazy. I think it was a miniseries that they cut into a feature-length film, and then the director's like, you know what, let's just make it even longer with 60 more minutes. It didn't need to be that long. There's a bunch of things in there that probably could have been shortened, but I don't think I would have taken anything out because it was a very natural and gradual progression. They set everything up, and they built upon each scene wonderfully. I think the second half, like Lawrence of Arabia, is way better than the first half. The second half is when I really started to fall in love with these characters. I would be remiss if I did not talk about that ending. Holy shit. I've never felt like that since The Mist, Brody. Crushed me. To sum it up, this movie, it's not about politics. It's not about war, really. It's not about good guys versus bad guys. There are no good guys or bad guys. These are just dudes. They're regular guys who are just trying to do their job and do it efficiently and get home. A brotherhood who looked out for each other and grieved their losses with each other and hoped with each other. And I think by the end of the film, I really loved the crew. So that's what I thought about the movie. As for my rating, honestly, it's up there with Lawrence of Arabia. 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed this film. I really enjoyed it.
This movie did a very, very good job accomplishing what it set out to accomplish in terms of the tone and the claustrophobia and the realism of this situation. It was intensely claustrophobic, and what I found really fascinating about it is it didn't become more claustrophobic as it went on. This one started with it, like with the establishing shots of when he was getting the tour of the whole thing, it was already claustrophobic. The narrow hallways, everyone shares a bunk, the bathrooms are full of supplies. It immediately let you know what you were in for. And the claustrophobia extends to the rest of the movie as well, with like the sound design underwater, which was so cool to listen to, and almost the antithesis of claustrophobia being the open sea, and just how that almost makes what they're experiencing more claustrophobic. It's bizarre.
It's crazy to think that they're just like in this little thing, and then there's a sheet of metal, and on the other side, it's the ocean. Like, it's so nuts.
Yeah. I think how slow and anxiety-inducing everything was between the action scenes was probably, I'm going to say probably, because I've never been in the war, probably very realistic and reminiscent to what a war actually is like. A lot of movies nowadays will just be big budget, high octane, action, action, action. This one really took you out of that so you could experience what it felt like on the other side of all of that, which you don't often get to see. It also did a very good job not showing any of these men as heroes, as the star, as something more than they should be. They were all just disciplined professional men. It made for a touch of tedium across the ensemble because I don't think anyone stood out as a drastically different character from somebody else, but that is the military. You're a unit. That's the point.
Oh, I disagree. There's that one guy who was the class clown, and then you had the one guy who was always always like prim and proper and like wanted to do things by the book. And then we had Chief, the second officer, who actually ended up being the hero at the end of the movie. There's like fixing everything. I don't know. They were all different.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe you're right. No, I mean, you're probably right, but it's how I felt about it. I feel like the cliche of like looking at a picture, oh, is this your girlfriend? Is this your wife? Oh, very pretty. Like, it just kept happening. It's like, it's enough. I also agree. It was very, very nice to see the Germans as Germans, and not just Nazis, because if this movie was made by Americans in the 80s, it would have been a drastically different movie where these were Nazis. Because it was a political party. Could you be in the German army and not be a Nazi? Yes? No? I don't know. Little details in this movie just added it up to being just really unsettling and uncomfortable. I could literally also smell the barracks. The amplification of the sound underwater, the limited vision of the periscope, the creaks of the submarine, the blipping of the radar. It just kept stacking up and getting more and more anxiety. Ugh. There was a lot to enjoy technically, and I think that the score is this movie's shining testament, personally. Something about the music, especially like the first time a real big like song came in, it was like a Sonic boss almost. I don't know if you remember the music. It was so interesting, and I think the acting was also fantastic. Technically, a lot of technical beauty in this movie. So it is actually bizarre of me to say such lovely things and then also not hold this movie in that high of a regard. I was bored out of my skull.
Oh no.
The action scenes worked. They were really well done. And I know I was just praising the juxtaposition of like purposeful boredom in between the action, but it was just too much sometimes. I have a feeling if I watched the theatrical version, I might have a higher rating because it was the director's cut and it was 3.5 hours opposed to the 2.5 of its original runtime. It didn't need to be 3.5 hours.
That's literally the only reason why it lost points on my
Wow, you
on
would
my
have given
scale.
it like a 10.
If I saw a theatrical version, it might have been a perfect movie, to be honest.
Whoa. That's cool. Got a little frustrated with like their objective. It's never fully set in stone for us. I feel like they're always just kind of going one place to another. Sometimes an objective gets thrown at us and then they arrive there immediately. And I just felt it was silly. And aside from the exact very ending, because I agree that that was very powerful and emotional and quite impressive. For being 3.5 hours long, they really spent like zero time with the last act of this movie. They really just chugged it along as quickly as they could to reach that climax. It's funny because I enjoyed the first half of this movie more than the second half.
What?
I honestly, I enjoyed the first 20 minutes the best. Like the where they're all just drunk at the party. That's my favorite part of the movie.
What? how do you not love them just like scrambling to survive as they're at the bottom of the ocean? Like, that's incredible.
I don't know.
The joy I felt when they finally started to like get rid of the water and they started to rise and the meter started to go above 260 or below 260. I was like, yo, these guys did it. They're going home. And then it was all torn away from me. I hate it.
Yeah. It's weird because normally I love that kind of emotional roller coaster, but maybe I was just already checked out by the 3-hour mark. Like, I just couldn't enjoy it anymore. I was too far gone. And I don't have a hard time paying attention to movies. It actually was very interesting to me how little this one captivated me. For the early 80s, what this film accomplished is very impressive to me. But as an action flick, which is what this movie is advertised as and what the trailer had me expecting, it fell very short. This is a drama with action in it. I gave it a 6 out of 10.
It's not terrible.
No, it's better than average. Fell short of good.
I never expected it to be an action movie. I don't know where that expectation came from. Maybe because you watched the trailer.
I watched the trailer, and it's also like hailed as a action movie. I thought maybe I'm hailed.
I never. That's a stretch, man.
That's just a mispronunciation. Oh, you thought I meant like water turns into hail?
Yeah. I was like, that's a huge stretch. But no, your hail is just the stretch of an arm. For those of you who want to know, spoiler alert, the ending of the film, we keep hinting at it. They get home. They have literally, like I said, have gone through hell and survived the unsurvivable. They get home, they pull into the port, and are immediately air raided by British airplanes and get fucking destroyed, and everyone basically dies. And it tore my heart apart. My jaw hit the ground. I was like, I just started to love these dudes. Like, what happened?
It is very reminiscent of The Mist, isn't it? It kind of went the other way. The Mist is a very, very depressing ending that then the happiness of what happens makes it more depressing. This was a happy ending that then got it's but like the same level of oh my God, that's either we or that character just got absolutely robbed out of what was supposed to happen.
Yeah, it was literally a same but different ending.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you gave it an 8 out of 10, which might be a good segue into me assuming it's going to be on your top 5 of the week. And our top 5 of the week, by the way, is top 5 movies that take place underwater.
First of all, I tried to stay away from putting every single shark movie on my list because I love shark movies. Second of all, I tried to find movies that, if not taking place fully underwater, at least the movie has a vibe of like a lot of the action is happening underwater, or like things that they interacting with are underwater, like some sort of underwater element to the movie.
Okay. Derek, would you like to kick this off?
I would be honored. My top 5 movies that take place underwater are as follows. Number 5, we're kicking it off with The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Zizzle. Okay, solid.
Again, not a movie that takes place underwater entirely, but number 4, the movie that scarred me the most as a child, Deep Blue Sea.
All right.
Memory serves me right, that does take place almost entirely underwater because it's an underwater research station.
Yeah, except for the very end.
I watched that through the crack of a door at my grandma's house when I was a kid, and I was way too young to see someone's arm get ripped off and he bleed out on the ground, and I got scarred for life. Number 3, the underwater movie, Finding Nemo.
Oh.
I mean, it's fish. It's Pixar. It's underwater in almost entirely, except when they go to the dentist, and even still, they're in an aquarium, so it's underwater then.
I put Shark Tale instead.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't.
Should have guessed, you hipster. Yeah, hipster. Number 2, Das Boot.
Hey, whoa, number 2. I thought it wasn't going to be on your list. I thought we got too far down. Damn.
Das Boot left a mark. I just can't stop thinking about it. Number 1 is a movie I watched a long time ago. I don't quite remember it, to be honest, like every detail, but I remember it being awesome, and it's right up my alley. The Abyss.
Oh.
Takes place underwater and is also sci-fi because it's an alien life form.
It's like a slimy
originates.
Alien face, right?
Yeah, exactly. My honorable mention is Poseidon.
The remake, if you're just saying Poseidon.
Correct.
Okay. I agree completely and totally. Love Poseidon. My top 5 movies that take place underwater are as follows. Number 5, I did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
I've never seen this.
We watched it together. We read the book. We had the book. We used to read it, and then Mom rented it. I don't think I've seen it since I was a kid, but I remember it, and I loved it. So
I definitely have read the book with you 100%, but I never watched the movie. No way.
Okay, you're probably
Really?
right. You didn't. Yeah, you did, because I wouldn't watch. I mean, maybe I watched it alone, but I'm pretty sure we watched it together.
Interesting. No, I don't remember that shit at all.
Well, number 4, Poseidon.
Hey!
Yeah, I love this movie. I know it's not like a good movie, but I loved it, and it's my number 4. Number 3, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Okay, here we go.
It feels weird to have that movie on a top 5 list, as it's like one of my least favorite Wes Anderson movies, but with this subgenre, it became one of my top 5. So it's crazy how things happen. Number 2, Atlantis, The Lost Empire.
Fuck, I forgot about that. Okay. That would probably make my list.
That
I forgot
is
about that movie.
Arguably one of Disney Animation's best modern era movies, I guess, 2000 and onward. I just love Atlantis. Great movie.
That and Treasure Planet.
Yeah, dude. Either of those deserve the live action remake instead of Tangled and Moana, you fucking idiots.
100%.
Like, or Black Cauldron? Come on, man. And my number 1 was also on your list, and I'm surprised it wasn't higher on your list. Deep Blue Sea.
Okay.
Deep Blue Sea is the best underwater movie of all time because it is all underwater, and it is the best shark movie of all time, in my opinion.
Wow. Whoa. That's a hot take. Deep Blue Sea's not a good movie.
No,
it's just
but it is.
It's just a fun time.
Yeah. And my honorable mention, Creature from the Black Lagoon. That is our top 5 underwater movies.
What are your top 5 underwater movies? We want to hear them in the comments below. Please tell us.
Please tell us.
Thanks.
And while you're typing that, I'm going to stuff my fist into the hat of destiny. All right, here we go. Oh, you know what's really funny, though? What's the funniest movie ever made? Grave of the Fireflies.
No way.
Fuck.
No, I didn't want to cry this week.
So I have seen this movie about 10 years ago, but I was blazed out of my skull. So I remember kind of how it goes, but I don't remember it. And I certainly didn't review it as a critic. So I'm very excited to rewatch this. And I know Derek has never seen it and has been avidly avoiding watching it. So Grave of the Fireflies, the story of two young Japanese siblings living in the declining days of World War II. When an American firebombing separates the two children from their parents, the two siblings must rely completely on one another while they struggle to fight for their survival.
Bro.
Tune in next week to watch us
I'm not ready.
cry. As always, thank you all so much for hanging out with us, for coming back every week, for watching our shorts, for liking and subscribing and sharing. And if you haven't done those things, do those things, because we want to keep doing this, and that helps so much when you support us in those ways. So please spread the love around. Keep coming back.
At the recording of this video too, we're almost at 500 subscribers, so if you guys could just like help us out a little bit, that would be dope.
That'd be really, really cool. That'd be a really big milestone for us.
Bye, bro. Thanks for talking movies.
Always a pleasure. I'm glad you liked The Boat, Derek. Das Boot.
Bye.
Bye. But I was blazed out of my skull. So I remember kind of